Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you're joining me from, in your car, on your laptop, on your phone. We have a great show today. I am going to be joined by my man, Dmac from 92.5 Altitude, the voice of reason, the professional agitator. Dmac, I cannot wait to have him on the show. You guys know him well. He's been in the market for 3 decades. We're going to talk Broncos finishing stretch, the position they're in, Bo Nix, and can this defense rebound after that dreadful performance against Cleveland? But Bronco fans, enjoy it, relish it. The Broncos have won 3 straight. They're in a great position to reach the playoffs. If it feels like it's been a long time, it's because it has. They haven't been in this position since really 2016, haven't made the playoffs since 15. We're going to cover all of it with Dmac after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto, with us, it's personal. That's because it is. I've known Darby Hoggett forever. I coached his son in baseball and basketball. We traveled the country watching sports, and he told me, start a Broncos podcast. I'm so glad he did. I became his good friend. Many of Darby's clients become his good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. Again, if you've been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work, give Darby's team a call, 1-833-HO-GGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGET, or visit the website at hoggettlaw.com. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. They have the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college, hoops, NHL, even UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, BELIEVE. That's for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. Welcome back to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post, and I am pleased to join right now my man, Dmac. He's on the afternoons from noon to 3, the PhD show with Tyler Polumbus, Scott Hastings, and Dmac. I just call it the Dmac show. I'm biased. The other two, they gang up on you, Dmac. I'm driving in my car and I'm texting you information like, get him off your back. Get him off your back.
Oh, you're too funny and too kind, Troy. Thank you.
Dmac, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It's great to be on with you. I love your podcast. And as we get older, we age like fine wine, Troy, and we just adapt. So it's great to be on with you. And I love talking Broncos, always.
Yeah, I'm aging more in dog years. I have more wrinkles than a Shar-Pei at this point. I always tell my kids, when I die, you can say he would have lived about 7-8 years longer if he hadn't covered the Broncos from
there you go.
2016 to 2023. But it is a good time for Broncos country, Dmac. Finally, hope is real. We're not trying to go through these. Usually this time of the year, we're going through these scenarios. If they win 5 in a row and these 3 teams lose and we feel like Goodwill Hunting up at the chalk, we're like, come on, what are we talking about? Now the path, Dmac, pretty clear. You and I were on the conference call with Sean Payton yesterday.
Yeah.
When you look at this team now, winners of 3 straight, 8-5, what is it you want to see as they face the Colts in what is the latest biggest game of the season? Because if they beat the Colts, Dmac, the odds go from around 75%. You might be able to put a 9 in front of that number now if they beat the Colts.
Well, there's what I call it, Troy, is expected wins and unexpected wins, not must wins. I think must wins, I can't help but take it too literally. But what you need to do is win as many of your expected win games, hopefully all of them. And then you got to pick up a couple of unexpected wins. The Colts, by a mile, is an expected win. So were the past 3 games, and they always were, which is why the Ravens game and even that Chiefs game, as heartbreaking as that wasn't the end of days, okay? Because those were unexpected wins. But so was Tampa, and frankly, I think early in the season, so was the Jets. And we didn't know what the Jets really were all about at that point, although maybe that was an indicator. So that being said, if they can just do what they've basically done all year, they've won every expected game they should have won. They really have. There hasn't been a game, and early in the season, they were just getting their feet wet, and who knows in the first 2 weeks of the season, right? And when you look at Seattle and Pittsburgh, they're both playoff teams, it appears. So, that's a little bit more difficult than we thought. So the way the Broncos have done things and what Sean said to me makes sense. All we have to do is what we've been doing. And he's right about that. Also, he said nobody in the building is going to be satisfied with just getting a winning record, which would be the first time with one more win since 2016. I think all of this is good. And while this bye week was weird in week 14, doesn't it, Troy, feel like a brand new season right now?
It feels like the second season starting right now. They have 4 games remaining. If they win 2 of them, they're 100% in the playoffs. And obviously one of those needs to be the Colts. But then you go to Chargers, you have the Bengals, and then you have the Chiefs, who may or may not be playing for anything in that last game. But Dmac, I'm going to take it a step further. I mean, and again, full transparency, I've never hit from this. I picked him to win 6 games. I love the pick of Bo Nix because of the arrogance and confidence in which Sean Payton picked him, and how I'm like, he sees something and how this is going to fit. But I thought, they're going to be more competitive. We're going to like what we see, but it's just not going to translate into enough wins.
Right.
But now at 8, Dmac, why not go for the 6th seed? And I say that selfishly because I want to see him play the Steelers and Russell Wilson, but I don't think you have to settle for 7 right now, because you play the Chargers. In some ways, if they beat the Colts, they beat the Chargers, all of a sudden, it may be, because let's be honest, going to Buffalo as a 7 seed, that's a tough win. You live Buffalo. Literally, you lived in Buffalo and covered the Bills. That's the last place you want to be in January right now. It's just because of the weather, because of the crowd, because of everything. And if they lost, it wouldn't matter. But if you go to the Steelers, that's a winnable game. I'm not saying you'd win it, but you'd feel like you'd have a shot. I don't think Buffalo gives you a shot. But T-Mac, why settle? Why do we have to say, well, let's just hope they get a 7 seed? I think there's more meat on the bone.
Well, I hope so, because that's what ticked me off about what happened this past weekend, because it really didn't go great for the Broncos, in my opinion. Right. The Bengals won last night because the Cowboys are idiots. And you had one job. You've got one job. Can you imagine if your life was special teams? That's it, Troy. All you have to do is do special team stuff, and all you need to do is, get away. How do you not? Anyways, the Cowboys get what they deserve, and Micah Parsons, great teammate. See you later. But that being said, the Bengals scare the crap out of me. The Chargers scare me to a degree. I think getting the Chargers on a short week is actually a good thing. If it's like going to the dentist, you might as well just get it over with, right? Instead of putting it off. And maybe something breaks your way. Who knows? Tough game, though. Both, to me, are unexpected wins. Tough to get. And that Chiefs game, listen, man, I just don't want to. Do you remember, Troy? I'm sure you do. The Broncos make the playoffs and then get slaughtered by the Colts 2 years in a row by Peyton Manning, right? That is what's going to happen if they play the Bills, okay? That's exactly what's going to happen, and I don't want to see that. I want to put that off for as long as humanly possible. I mean, at some point you may get there, but I like their chances against the Chiefs or the Steelers.
Right.
On the road, way better than the Bills. And right now, you're playing the Bills if you're the 7 seed. So I couldn't agree with you more. And the Bills have a 2-game lead over the worst 1-loss team of all time in the Chiefs. So, man, I think you really got to fight for that 6 seed. And I think they will. I don't think there's any way they're going to lay back. That's not in their DNA. That's not what Sean Payton's going to do. But you're right. I think the 7 seed right now, as it sits with the Bills, sucks. Not good enough. Not even close to good enough. And as the ink-wretched scribe that you are, the best story is playing Russell Wilson. We all know that's the best story.
I know we had it last time. I remember writing leading up to that game. It's like, you take the low road, he takes high knees. I mean, it's like it was all set up. Here comes Russell. And I got along with Russell. I did, and I'm happy for his success. people who think it would have happened here just don't really understand the dynamics behind the scene. He was not Sean Payton's quarterback.
No.
The relationship had deteriorated on a professional and personal level.
Right.
Sean Payton is Bill Parcells. He doesn't want a rock star quarterback. He doesn't want a guy who's bigger than the team. And fair or not, that's how Russell was viewed. And he was way better that year than he was the year before. But they always had to reset, something you and I have been in agreement on.
Yeah.
While we look at Russell Wilson, had a tremendous year. Part of the reason he's had it, it's almost Seattle all over again.
Yes.
Very, very dominant head coach personality, defensive oriented, run the football, don't turn it over. You barely see Russell Wilson on social media anymore. He's gone back to being the guy I loved when he was Roger Staubach for the Seahawks.
Right.
But Dmac, you agree that if they had held on to him, let's say we take the hypothetical, and I wrote about this earlier in the year, in part because of Rodgers. If you hold on to it and they go 10-7 with Russell this year, then next year he's turning 37. And so you go 10-7, you get knocked out in the first round, and then what? Like, this always had to happen, that you had to, at some point, reset at quarterback with a first-round choice with full commitment, right?
There's no doubt about it. And the value of Russell Wilson goes in what it took to obtain him. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, partridge in a pear tree, right? Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, Drew Lock, whatever. So you had no room for anything but a championship run immediately.
Right.
And this is what you got yourself into when you did the dumb thing in 2018 and 2021 and you didn't take a quarterback. So you were in desperation mode. And this is where the Broncos were so off kilter. Troy, you're right. It was never going to work because it wasn't built the right way. The foundation was faulty. And this is where you've got to give Greg Penner and Sean Payton all the credit. I do think George Payton is efficient as his role, which is essentially assistant to the general manager, because the general manager really is Sean Payton, who makes the bigger decisions. However, who's going to get the left-footed punter in for tryout week? Right. That's George Payton. I mean, who's going to really dial in on Nick Bonito? Where that's not Sean Payton, that's George Payton. And I think George Payton has been very, very good on the things he had done for years with the Vikings. The one thing George wasn't used to, and he was not good at, is identifying the quarterback. He never had to do it in Minnesota, and he never did it here. And he was under a bad set of circumstances, and it looked nice to get Russell Wilson, but they didn't realize that we win a championship, Troy, or we're screwed. Right. And it was clear you weren't going to win a championship with Russell Wilson. Maybe you make the playoffs, but that's not good enough. And this is what I've been screaming about for years and years and years. And that's why the whiff on Josh Allen in 2018 was the most colossal mistake in Broncos draft history. It really set the organization back. And finally, thank God, Sean Payton and Greg Penner knew what they had to do. And it wasn't the 6th quarterback taken, the worst quarterback. That is such a messed up sense of logic. They loved Bo Nix, rightfully so, because he had every trait they needed. So it wouldn't have mattered how much money Russell Wilson cost you to get out of. You were in the pit of misery no matter what. So who cares what the cap hit is? It doesn't matter because you're not going anywhere anyhow.
And now you have a future.
Correct.
You have a future. You've got the right coach with the right quarterback.
Correct.
And we've seen Bo Nix. That's my next question here is, how do you feel like your audience, because you're on there, again, folks, if you're not listening, it's Dmac on PhD on Altitude 92.5, noon to 3, Monday through Friday. How do you think the audience, Broncos country, is reacting to Bo Nix specifically and this season in general? Are they warming up? I see him as a franchise guy. I know you've received pushback on that. Yeah. And I'm just like, we had Druthers out there with Drew Lock that every time he got a completion, we're ready to put a statue outside. I mean, everything you want from a kid with touchdown, smart, decision maker, leader, doesn't turn the ball over. Like, this is all you've wanted since Manning. So how is your audience reacting on a kind of daily basis to not the team in general and Nix specifically this season, Dmac?
I think the audience and Bronco fans are smartly thrilled. What I have to work with, and we all do in the media, are media people that were wrong about Nix in the first place. Now, I love my compatriots, but going down with the ship that you should have done something besides Bo Nix is painful right now. It is a mistake, and you're much better off. And you don't have to declare him as the 10-year guy, but he is, and maybe longer than that. So I'm happy to just tell you the truth where it presents itself. This is the guy, man. This is the guy who's going to get a second contract. This is your $60 million, and probably, Troy, it will be $60 million per year where the way it's going. This is that guy. This is it. And you don't have to think about this position for the next decade. And that makes people feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. And I don't know. I guess it's traumatic Paxton Lynch syndrome, that they think it's going to fall apart. But Nix has been so much better than Paxton Lynch or Drew Lock. I mean, it's not even close how much better he's been. He's been better than Cutler. He's been better than Plummer. He's been better than Keenum and Flacco. And you just kind of keep going. He's been better than Tebow. He's been better than all these guys, Troy. And it's not close. So anybody who's hemming and hawing, I don't know, man. They probably wanted the Broncos to pick Brock Bowers, something like that. I can't put any other logic to it. And I got to be a little patient because riding the I told you so train can be annoying. But chew.
Yeah, listen, I've heard the Brock Bowers argument advanced with, hey, they should have just stayed with Zach Wilson and started Bowers. Again, if you follow that down and connect the dots, let's say they go 10-7, Bowers is great. Zach Wilson becomes a free agent. Now you have to pay him Baker Mayfield money. 3-year, probably $120 million. Do you want to do that again when you have a guy on a rookie contract? That's the point, is not only that Bo is good, which by any objective measure, he's good. Now, I get people understand they struggle with his ceiling. He's got a low ceiling. I'm not going to argue. I disagree with that, but I understand it. But he was always going to get better. He was never going to be a 50% pass accuracy guy because of who he is. He's always completed passes. He was bad a few games early. But the point of this is, you not only is he good, but he's at minimum salary, Dmac.
Correct.
He allows you to build the team around him. So even if Zach Wilson and Brock Bowers were great, then you're going to have to lose money because you got to pay Wilson. And that's what we're missing here, is the way it makes the rest of the puzzle pieces fit. And everyone says, well, they could have done this with Russell Wilson. Well, essentially, you're paying $58 million for this quarterback this year, 53 for Russell, and 5 or whatever it is for Bo. That's the reality of it. You have to reset the position, to reset everything around it, the mechanics and the puzzle around it.
I have this argument with people all the time because they say, well, would you rather have Bo Nix or Justin Fields? And I'm like, listen, y'all, I don't have a time machine. I don't have a time-space continuum. Am I getting them both at the same exact time? And the answer is no. So, of course, I'd rather have Nix than Fields. The same reason why, like, Sam Darnold is such a problem in Minnesota right now, even though he's great. But you drafted J.J. McCarthy, and he's on a rookie deal. So, and I had this silly argument about, well, they've got to sign Sam Darnold. And I'm like, well, why the hell did they draft J.J. McCarthy? Why would they really change their plan? Because now all of a sudden you have a plan where you don't have to spend $50 million or maybe $30 million on a quarterback for 3 to 4 years. But now we're going to do it next year? Like, what about everything else? And that's the same, like Fields or Nix. It's a ridiculous argument because you've got to. You cannot reasonably have this argument without taking the salary structure into mind. And and another thing that pisses me off is the throwing away of the 5th-year exemption as if it's nothing. It's a benefit to the team and to the fans. And yeah, okay, if he's any good, you'll never get there. Fine. But who knows what's going to happen? It's not a negative. That's why taking Drew Lock, Troy, in the 2nd round was stupid. Frankly, taking any quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round is just flat out dumb. You're much better to take the guy 4th, 5th round, really, or later, break glass in case of emergency. Again, he's a lower level salary. And you can fill out your room however you want. But it boggles the mind, Troy, that people don't understand how the financials work here. The home run of home runs is to get a rookie quarterback who can succeed in his first year and win a championship, say in his third year. Do we all understand the cap space the Broncos are going to have next year? It's going to be mind-blowing. And as good as this team is, I guarantee you, Troy, guarantee you, this team will have playmakers and just better dynamic players next year, which is awesome. And in 2 years, in 2026, the Denver Broncos going on this trajectory should be like the Detroit Lions, and hopefully they're just not, Campbell cult-like, and they play with their head, not their heart. But they really should be on the same path 2 years from now as the Detroit Lions. That's how I see it, and I don't know how you can't be excited about that.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I do when I push back about Bo Nix, things I do push back about is when and Jaden Daniels, I loved him coming out. He's still my favorite guy, and I think he would have done just great with Peyton. Caleb Williams probably as well. I'd love, but
probably
and you see how hard it is to overcome dysfunction, organizational dysfunction, either through coaching, the GM. It's almost impossible unless you're Andrew Luck, or it's just hard to overcome. But my point with Nix, when I do push back, we're like, oh, it's the ceiling and this. I'm like, who are his weapons? Javonte Williams ranks among the worst starting running backs in the league.
Right.
They have no tight end, and they have one receiver he trusts in terms of making plays on third down. It's Cortland Sutton. That's why I advocated they go get David Njoku at the trade deadline.
I agree. Yes.
I mean, and I get he wasn't totally available, but he needs more weapons. They have to draft Warren or Loveland, the kid from Michigan or the kid from Penn State, for me. If that's I'm fine with that. And then you go get one more receiver. And if you don't want to pay T. Higgins, you got to get a guy, and it's got to be better than a Josh Reynolds. It can't be that guy. It's got to be a guy that you say could be a 1, where Cortland's a 2, because Cortland's situation could get greasy. Was he going to report to camp? If he has 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, is he going to report with no guaranteed money? That's why I'm saying you got to protect yourself in March and go get a receiver. But that's the end. I mean, I think you and I agree that Bo Nix has a chance to lead this team to the playoffs. Everything's in front of them. But then we have this weird question of the only reason it felt like they were winning for a long time was their defense.
Yeah.
With Riley Moss out, oh my God, we love Pat Surtain. Riley Moss is like apparently the Hope Diamond, the one missing. I mean, Levi Wallace has grill marks. Holy crap! Outside of Rock Alexander against the Colts in the playoffs, and Tony Little, I can't recall a defensive back playing worse for the Broncos. But Dmac, how confident are you they're going to bounce back? And it's a weird game because Anthony Richardson, if you look at his stats, they are brutal.
Yeah.
But he can beat you with one play with his arm or his legs. The guy's legit, 6'5", 250. I stood next to him at a restaurant at the Combine. He's like Derrick Henry size. Like he's unbelievably big, but he's so inconsistent. Can this defense bounce back, or do you have concerns about how they respond following that Browns game?
Not really. I see this Colts game similar to the Falcons game, going in sort of that direction. I'm not as confident about the Chargers and the Bengals. Way more dangerous to me. In the Chiefs game, I don't know, with the stupid Chiefs. But I see a relatively easy win for the Broncos, who, aside from Riley MVP Moss, I guess, are relatively healthy. And let me just go back on something else you said. Here's what I would look for, perhaps, Troy, and you may know better than I. But are they going to get a deal done with Garrett Bowles before the end of December?
I wrote about this. I'd keep him, and I know fans.
I would too. It
was funny, too, because I'd say the reaction was about 60-40 those in favor, but still a lot saying, hey, too many penalties, got to move on. And I'm like, left tackle's hard to find, and I don't think they have any plans to move Palczewski to left side. They're not going to move McGlinchey to left side. Bowles, he's allowed 1 sack this year.
Yes.
We really want to stunt Bo Nix's development by throwing in rando left tackle. Ask Patrick Mahomes what that feels like.
Right.
That kid they threw in from BYU. It went from we're okay over there to 5-alarm fire every snap because the guy can't even get a hand on somebody, where you're bringing in a guy in Humphreys, the guy they brought in, who's coming off ACL surgery and hasn't played in like 13 months. They don't want to be in that position. I would keep Bowles. You're asking me? I just know as of 2 weeks ago, there had been no conversations. Bowles wants to stay here. Yeah. But every chance they've had, Dmac, when they reworked Cortland Sutton's deal, when they had a chance at the trade deadline to clear space, they had a chance over the offseason, None of it happened for Bowles. That's why when you read the tea leaves, it feels like they're doing the old, hey, go see what your market is. And I think the Chiefs should be at the front of that line.
Yeah, I think that's a dangerous game to play. I've looked at some of the mocks, which is sick, I know, but I have. If they're taking where they're playing right now, they'd be taking the 4th or maybe 5th left tackle in the draft. And it would prevent you from getting maybe the second best tight end, which you could really use.
100%.
So here's what I would do. I would pay Bowles. I would.
What about 3 years, 66? Would he take it? Put it in front of him at 22 a year. Would he take that?
I think he would, because I think he's a home discount sort of guy. That's the impression I get. He would be the longest tenured left tackle in Broncos history, and it would make him a Ring of Famer, which is wild to think about.
He wouldn't be, they'd have to win a title for him to be a Ring of Famer.
I respectfully disagree with you, because I'd say if you're the longest tenured left tackle in the history of the Denver Broncos, you're going into the Ring of Fame. Just that accomplishment by itself will do the trick for you. But again, I've got him like winning the Super Bowl in 2026 as well.
There
so,
it all
sort of ties in together. So your first round pick, listen, you could convince me BPA, best player available, at 22, 23, wherever they're going to end up. But I like that tight end. And I'll tell you this, Cam Skattebo is like the new Austin Eckler. I'm telling you. He is like Eckler. I'm telling you. And you
Eckler?
Yes.
He's not Eckler. He's not fat. He's a brute.
Well, Eckler's not a brute. Eckler's not going to pound through you.
He ran 4.4. Eckler could fly.
Skattebo's got breakaway speed. And more importantly, like Eckler, he can keep his balance and get through traffic and has amazing yards after contact. So we're not getting into a 40, race. I don't care about that. But I care about taking that 2-yard run and making it 6 yards to 12 yards. Javonte Williams.
Arizona State bias is coming through. We have that guy on the roster. It's Audric Estime.
No.
Play him.
Troy.
Estime is better than Skater Boy. He's better than
Troy. Comparing Skattebo to Estime is like comparing you to Brad Pitt. I mean, you're both guys, but it's different. I
see Avril Lavigne singing, "Here comes Skater Boy, here he comes." It's like, are we sure he's a starting running back? Estime can do it. I'm telling you, he can do it.
He's nowhere close. Now, wait a second. Do we have some little ASU envy from a CU guy right now? What is going on here?
I like Cam. I do like him. I'm not sure how he profiles in the NFL. I got to see it.
Austin Eckler. Third round, Austin Eckler.
I covered Eckler's pre-draft workout. He ran like a 4.38. Skater Boy's not running unless he's actually on a skateboard. Is not getting anywhere near 4.38.
You don't run a 4.38 from the backfield to the line of scrimmage, Troy. You find the hole and then you power through. Javonte Williams takes a 3-yard gain and makes it a 5-yard loss. I mean, it's unbelievable.
He's the master of, you need 3, he gives you 2. You need 4, he gives you 3. You need 2, he gets you 1.
I mean, listen, Javonte's
I love Javonte.
I do too.
He's the third down back. I've said this. Put him at third down back. Play Estime.
Okay, all right. You're in love with Estime. I like Skattebo, and you could pick him up in the 3rd round. And why not?
Okay, I thought you were going to say first. Then I was going to tell the producer to shut this thing down now.
No, sign Bowles. I would make Courtland Sutton a top 15 paid receiver, which would be around 24-25 million. I would do that. His chemistry with Bo Nix is spectacular.
On how many years? 3 years?
Whatever. I mean, however you can get it done, whatever needs to be done. But I would boost that up. And I thought they were going to trade Courtland Sutton this year. I thought the record would be such that, I think after week 8, I thought they were going to be like 3-5 after week 8, and they would just trade him. And they did sell, but they sold Baron Browning. They didn't buy anything necessarily, but it hasn't hurt them because Cooper and Nick Bonito, that's
Jonah Ellis made Browning expendable.
Yeah,
and that's how you draft. That was a smart move. To your point, George Payton has been awful with free agent signings, but he's been good with this, like a scouting director. He's really good at that part.
Yeah,
the free agent stuff and the big picture stuff, not his strength. It doesn't really have to be anymore, frankly. But I would get a tight end, Tyler Warren or the kid Loveland from Michigan.
Okay.
They have to get a tight end in the passing game. You cannot ask Bo Nix. Can you look what happened to CJ Stroud? This is where that cautionary tale or CJ Stroud, it's unbelievable. He's amazing. He's not amazing this year. Why? Because two receivers got hurt, and all of a sudden he doesn't have anyone to throw to. And that's my concern with Nix. You can't keep asking him to do this with limited whip. Go get him a guy like a Mark Andrews type where every time you just need a fake RPO, throw it right to the middle of the field, 7 yards. Like they need a tight end. They need a tight end in this offense.
All right, I'm with you. We're on the same page. You just hate, you're just jealous of ASU. Forks up.
I would hope after what we've seen with the seeding of ASU and Boise State that next year it is a true seeding like the NCAA.
Oh, Troy, I agree with you on that. The way it should be, Clemson should be 12, Boise State should be 11, ASU should be 10. And yes, the best team like Oregon.
I mean, how about Oregon? They got to play the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee. And you got Penn State over there playing SMU to get to Boise State. I'm like, wait,
yeah,
what?
they'll have to play theoretically Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. All right, maybe that's a push. Then you got to play Texas in Texas and theoretically Georgia in Georgia. Oh, thanks a lot, committee. Great job. You figured that one out.
We went undefeated and went to our conference championship game.
By the way, it will not surprise me, though, if Arizona State or Boise State pulls an upset. And here's why. They're two run-based teams, and that is just weird in college football these days. And we saw what Kansas did to a dynamic CU team with an extreme running game. It's hard to predict that, like, ASU would beat Texas, that sort of thing. However, it's going to be tough, way tougher than people think. So while I definitely agree with you, and not in such an angry way as Joel Klatt, I mean, did somebody run over Joel's dog? I mean, did you have money on the line here, Joel? His anger is next level. But he's passionate about college football, and he's not wrong. This seeding thing is silly. I mean, listen, I agree. Conference champions should get in.
100%.
But just seed them the way they should be seeded on the strength of schedule and RPI.
Yeah, just like the NCAA basketball.
Yes, of course.
I think they've learned. They're trying so hard to appease. And I will say this, and I have relatives in Alabama, so I've always kind of followed them ever since, the Bear Bryant growing up. They have no leg to stand on when you lose to Vandy and you get run out of the building by one of the worst Oklahoma teams in like 40 years. So stop. I don't want to hear it. You got in last year, and I supported them getting in last year over Florida State. You have no argument. I don't want to hear it. SEC. You lost to Vandy and Oklahoma. So enough.
I agree. And SMU, heartbreaking for them to lose to Clemson that way, but like you can't be punished for playing in your championship game. That's not fair either. Because Notre Dame just sat there on the sidelines, twiddling their thumbs, watching everybody beat the crap out of each other. So I think they got it. I think they got it right. And by the way, Miami, you can't be the Kansas City Chiefs of college football and then lose on the road to Syracuse. And hey, good for Fran Brown and good for my Qs. I love them. But you can't do that and expect to be in the tournament either. So I got no sympathy for them at all.
You can't lose two of your last three. When you lose matters at the end of the season. But that's funny. That committee was ready to screw SMU when it was 24-7 at halftime to Clemson. If they lose 41-10, SMU's out, and they're shoving Alabama in, which would have been funny. I didn't have an issue with SMU because they said for a month we're not going to hold it against teams that reach the conference championship. So in theory, you can't do that. Now, again, if they had lost 41-10, I think they would have held it against SMU.
And by the way, make Notre Dame play somebody. I mean, if we're going to do that, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure who they would play, but make them play, I don't know, make them play Army again. I don't know, do something. Have the Independent Bowl or whatever, and Notre Dame faces the highest-ranked other independent team. They probably win, but at least they'd have to play. You know what I'm saying, Troy?
Right. Yeah, but I will say that I'm loving this tournament. I love everything. I
am too. I am too. Really quick. I have loved and followed college football more this year in total. And part of it is because my Q's was a really good team.
Yeah.
I've loved it more than anything. And I support, I don't know how you feel, an NIT version of college football. Make this sub-level worth something. And I've seen proposals for it, and it's pretty awesome. It takes care of all those other teams, and that would be an amazing tournament as well, Troy. I think that's a great idea.
It'd be interesting. It's just they have to satisfy the bowls. That's the only way they were able to do this. These teams technically in this tournament are still playing in bowl games. The big bowls, as long as they're satisfied, maybe the NIT tournament would still involve a bowl.
Well, because CU being a Pac-12 representative when the Pac-12 doesn't exist is stupid.
Right.
And the fact that you can't fit, there are two scenarios that would have been cool for CU. Number one, by a mile would have been CU Miami. But number two would have been CU against Syracuse, because at least it's kind of an interesting story with Kyle McCord, a quarterback for Syracuse who went to Ohio State, and Shadur Sanders. But CU against BYU, and then Syracuse against Washington State, and Miami against, I don't even know who Miami's playing. Like the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Like, they just blew it on that other level too, where things have been so good. And listen, man, I understand the old school nature of Deion Sanders, but it's insane that Travis and Shadur play in this game. It's crazy. Just those two. They have no reason to play. And if somebody was giving them the best advice, they would sit on the sideline and wave at everybody. And Travis is going to do that with the Heisman in his back pocket. There's zero reasons for those two guys to play.
Yeah, it is surprising. I mean, it's old school. It is surprising because of the money involved for those two specifically. CU, as you said, we got the Heisman Trophy thing coming up this weekend. Travis Hunter, a clear favorite. And then the Broncos Colts. It should be a great weekend for Colorado football fans specifically, where Broncos beat the Colts the night before Travis Hunter wins the Heisman Trophy. It feels like, man, it's kind of cool to be a football fan around here again. It's just been so doom and gloom. This is the first time CU and CSU have been a bowl. I think I wrote it's like since 2016, 15. I mean, it's been almost 8-9 years since the two of them, CU and CSU, in a bowl together. So it's better for the state when those teams are good. It's obviously better for the entire region when the Broncos are competitive and are a good story. And they are a great story right now.
And speaking of CSU, somebody said, I didn't know Snoop Dogg had a bowl. And I was like, when did Snoop Dogg not have a bowl? That's a marijuana reference. Colorado. Just giving it to you.
That's my man, Dmac. You can hear him every Monday through Friday on PhD with Scott Hastings and Tyler Columbus. I've known Dmac forever. I really appreciate you jumping on with me this morning. Big A is behind the screen. I couldn't do this pod without Mile High Sports and Nate Lundy. Darby Hoggett, my A1 from day one, and Bet Online, the new sponsor. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness, that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.